a power over what's going on within you. Right now, of course, it wasn't the deep dive of like taking complete accountability and understanding that, we truly are the creators of this thing we call our reality, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't all that at one time, right? I had to take
Yeah.
little bite-sized chunks. There was still a lot of victimhood in me. I was still going from different identity switches. I turned to a vegan for 3.5, 4 years. Fruitarian, like I was on all kinds of searches, just looking for something, right? Because even in the personal development, I was still in such a trying to prove myself through my doing. It was just another vehicle for me to do so. So now it was just through the grind, through the hustle, right? Got to get it done, got to get it done, got to get it done. Burn myself out to a crisp, then get back on the very same cycle, same hamster wheel, right? And so, yeah, that was the first time I realized, again, there are tools per se that you can use. But once I had this moment 2 years back, right? This fear of commitment moment, there was so much of my subconscious that was ready for me, right? It was just lodged in there. Again, I'd saturated myself with different types of content that there were now references that my spirit could go to be like, okay, let's take this a step deeper now, right?
Yeah.
Now this is about those emotional tools that we're going to use.
What happened in your life, or what part of your life did you start to see that your perspective was actually aligning you with peace?
In about 10 years from now, maybe. Yeah, so I still struggle. I still struggle because, as I said, really quickly to the viewers, my path, I'll be 51 this year. So my path is going to be a football player in the NFL, played football for 13 years, didn't work out. Went back to school, got an MBA, was going to be a chief financial officer for some huge public company, was a CFO for two startups for a decade. That came to an end. Then I was going to be like this fitness guru, right? The go-to guy on social media for losing weight, for building muscle, all that stuff. That lasted about 7, 8, 9, 10 years, still doing it. But then I came to this, where I'm using all of that to be a motivational speaker, to be a workshop facilitator, to be a social media thought leader. And so that has come with some sense of struggle with peace, like struggle with understanding, why didn't God give me this earlier? Like for real, God, I'm 51. Now you want me to do this? And seeing how my two children who I love dearly, haven't had every tour they wanted, didn't get every vacation they wanted, didn't get new cars, but I was there for them, as most fathers, or a lot of fathers can't be. My wife deserved the new handbag, deserved the vacations, and I couldn't do that. So there's some struggle mentally, there's some struggle spiritually, there's some struggle still with peace. But I'll say this, what's helping me to kind of deal with it is conversations with God. And what he continues to tell me more loudly now than ever is that I didn't create you to be like everybody else.
Like, that's subconscious reprogramming, which is what you were just doing. Is like, that is what we do. That's exactly what we do in our program, is to help people do subconscious reprogramming, which is like recognizing the old disempowering, it's neural pathways. Like, I think that learning about how my brain worked was so empowering for me, because I understood that once those neural pathways have been created, your body is your worth, food is good or bad, those things, they never leave your brain. They have created a groove in your brain, and it's like they either light up or they don't. And so sometimes, because of triggers, they're going to light up, and you just recognize it. You're like, oh, that's the old narrative happening. It's lighting up, it's there, it's never going away. And then you fall to your new programming, which you have to work on.
And so what happens is, when we're trying to heal those parts of us, and we're in spaces with people who are exacerbating those triggers, it becomes a constant cycle of, well, I'm trying not to be defensive, but now you're being accusatory, and now my defenses are coming up, and I don't want to be defensive, so I have to get off the phone. And now if I'm getting off the phone, your abandonment wounds are being triggered. So it's this constant battle. And that's why it is so, so, so important for you to be internally accountable. Because if you're expecting that because you have an abandonment concern, that the other person is supposed to heighten their level of reassurance to the nth degree, but that person person also has a feeling that they aren't enough and they're trying to work on it, but you're constantly telling them, hey, you're not doing enough. That's never going to work. There has to be a space where you're internally saying, hey, this is a me problem. Am I expecting this person to fulfill some sort of void that I have right now? Is this a her problem or a them problem? Are they really not prioritizing me inside of the relationship at all? Am I not getting any measure of love or reassurance from them? Or is what I'm getting enough and I'm really needing more and more and more, because once I get my cup filled there, then I just have an expectation of more that should be happening because I've already gotten used to my cup being filled there. And then obviously that situation makes you really look at if it's an us problem, because if that person and you are doing the same dance over and over and over again, then clearly that's an us problem. Can it be fixed? Of course it could. It could absolutely be fixed if both people are being internally accountable.
People who don't know what you like, give it time. You have to say, I sat with myself, even if you just start with 5 minutes. Even if you don't know what you don't want, start what you do want, start with what you don't want. And just say, and you know what, in the mornings, like, I don't pick up my phone. And because that right there, like, sends your day into a tailspin. Like, I'm not checking Facebook, Instagram, like any of those things. When I get up in the morning, I'm listening to something that is going to nurture my thinking, my intellect. Like, I'm letting positive words, and it could be somebody else's, it could be mine. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hear myself say something positive to me at the beginning of every day. And so if you keep giving yourself that, you keep giving yourself that time to nurture yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, eventually it's going to come to, you have a conversation with somebody else and it's like, oh, I like doing this. I'm like, I never thought about that. I may try, you know what I'm saying? But it's the time carved out. It's with yourself.
So if you want peace, you have to stop thinking about why people do the things they do. Now, this is coming from the super nerd who wants to know the origin of everything, right? Like that's my jam. I want to know why people behave the way they behave, what they could be connecting to their past. Like, this is something that I'm like fascinated by. And when it's people in your space, you are not responsible for thinking about why they've done it. You're only responsible for how it is affecting you. That's it. Because it's not your property, right? Their behavior is their property. You do not have to take any sort of ownership of their property. So if they behave a certain way, it's up to them to find the origin of that behavior. It's up to them to figure out why that triggered them. Yours is your response. That's it. Your thoughts can be an expression of your wisdom or your fear, and you have to be able to determine which one you're thinking in. So oftentimes we can figure that out pretty quickly because we know our greatest fears. So if your thoughts are ruminating in fear, you'll be able to extract that thing from it, especially if it's a core belief. So if you have a core belief that people are always going to leave you because you have abandonment concerns, then probably the rumination that you're doing is in that fear of people leaving. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're catastrophizing a relationship or you self-sabotage a lot, it's like you think about the things that are happening inside of the relationship and you make them mean something negative that they're not. All of those thoughts are based on your fears. So because you're ruminating on the fear that someone's going to leave you, you're actually causing it to happen because you're creating scenarios around you that aren't really going on. Whatever your core belief is, a lot of your fears are going to be attached to that thing. So something that you've always believed about yourself that's probably not a positive can make your fear grow and grow and grow, and can literally, bleed into all the areas of your life. And people were starving themselves to be thin. Now it's have curves, have a booty, have a strong body. So people are starving themselves of time and spending hours in the gym to gain this aesthetically pleasing body that people are telling them that they should have. All of it is in an effort to make you hate who you are so that you'll go try to become something else, which is why you're starting to notice that the trend no longer is to focus on this one thing. It's like all the things are wrong and here's a product to fix it, right? So remember when skinny jeans came out and you couldn't wear the flared jeans anymore, or jeans that were bigger. And then it was wide leg jeans, and now it's flare jeans. Well, if you go on the American Eagle website, which usually has like the trending clothes, you can buy any style of jean, and they label them as 90s or mom jeans or whatever it is. They put the label on it to make, the nostalgia come. But the reality is they can't even keep up with what the expectation is for you to wear, be, and do to be accepted in the world that you're in. So they're just like, buy whatever jean you want, just buy the jeans. And that is what's starting to happen. It's like, we're going to tell you that all the things are wrong with you. So just buy any of the products. Because at this point, we don't even know what's trending anymore. We just know that we want to manipulate you into spending your money on this thing that's supposed to make you accepted, when in actuality, it's never going to make you accepted at all. It's just something we're feeding you so that you can feed our pockets. What are the reasons that we may not want to be able to experience or accept the truth? And that's on a subconscious level. Because if you talk to anyone and you ask them, do you want to know the truth? They'll probably tell you yes. But the reality is, we think we want the truth, but are we willing to actually accept the truth? And the truth is going to give you peace, because the thing that you think is reality doesn't exist without the truth. So it's going to give you peace just for the mere fact that the truth is what exists. So you're allowing what exists to be in your space. But we don't always want that. We think that we do. We think that we have the ability to accept the truth. We think that we really want to know the real deal, but we also really like to exist in the space that we've created. And sometimes the truth disrupts that, and we don't really subconsciously want that information. But these are things that I've learned from being a child and also from being a parent. If you walk around acting as if you're perfect, they will feel like everything that goes wrong is their fault, because it couldn't in fact be yours because you're perfect. And then you teach them to lack humanity. So they walk around being people pleasers. They walk around just self-sabotaging because they think they're going to ruin it anyway. And all of that is a result of you not being human to them. They have to know that you are human so that they in fact can be. What does that look like? It looks like, I just screamed at my daughter. Now I'm going to go tell her, listen, that was a really poor way for me to react. I reacted in my emotion. It was not because of you. This thing still makes me angry, but I should not have reacted that way to you, because that's not fair. What I should have done, and in the future what I will do, is calmly express my, feelings toward you or whatever. What does that do? It says, oh, my mom makes mistakes too, and she can apologize. And in this house, we can make mistakes and we can apologize for them. And so I can be human, and it doesn't affect my ego, and it doesn't make me insecure to make mistakes. It, in fact, is a part of normal everyday life. But all of it is rooted in fear. Fear that people might see us for who we actually are. Fear that we might be exposed and vulnerable and thus hurt by people's emotions and perspectives. Fear that if people have a judgment about us, that therefore that means that their judgment is actual fact, and that we are disqualified, and that we aren't good enough, and that we aren't able to walk into the world in our purpose because of the judgment that others have for us. All of it is rooted in a fear of being seen. A fear that if being seen, we will not be able to be productive or perfect, which is a cycle, because it's, I have shame, so I have pride around that thing. I have pride around that thing because of this fear, and because of the fear, my ego comes into play. And it's this whole big cycle, but in reality, it's just limiting your ability to walk in the world in freedom and as your true self. Then I will forever frame my worth around what someone else does to validate that worth. And that's what happens when we have that validation tolerance. We're so we're so heavily focused on seeking more and seeking more and seeking more that we forget that if we just allow ourselves to go internally, we will become more. We will be the things that make us feel worthy. We will have an internal compass of what those things are. And whatever happens after you give that information, whatever happens after you write that book, whatever happens after you tell that joke, doesn't matter, because you know you're funny. You know you're good at writing. You know the information that you gave was valuable. And so because we seek so much externally for them to check off the box of our worthiness, we don't have any type of internal feeling of what that is. What am I worth? What is this information worth? Am I even good at this thing? When you have true alignment, you don't feel like you have to abandon yourself in order to have that thing. You don't feel like you have to be or act a different way in order to have that thing. And oftentimes we'll shove down those emotions because we say, okay, well, that's just me not wanting to change, right? That's just me being uncomfortable because this thing is making me grow or act differently. And that exists. There are spaces where we just seek alignment and we seek the thing that's for us, and it makes us uncomfortable because it's growing us. But the way how you know that that is the case is if it's actually growing you. You know that it's not for you. You know that you're not utilizing it in the way that is best for you. But you're afraid that in the chance that you might need it, some way, somehow, that you should keep it the way that it is and hold on to it, because if you let go of it when you need it, you might not have it. And that is 100% scarcity mindset. So if you're dealing with somebody who cannot listen to you expressing your feelings, can't listen to the happenings of your day, can't listen to some things that you may be really excited about, or even if you're unhappy about them, then that person is really structured in a way that they can't take in information that deals with other people's emotions or experiences, because they're so self-consumed with their own emotions and experience that they can't take on anyone else's. And those people are toxic inside of relationship, period, because relationship requires you to be with someone. And if you can only be in and with yourself, then you cannot be in relationship with someone. So that's going to be toxic to you.
The less comparing we do and the less focused on fair we are, the more creative we can be. So if I'm out here focusing on what the next person is recording, what the next person's podcast information is going to relay, what the next person is experiencing as far as follower growth, etc., then I'm not going to be able to focus on the things that I'm supposed to be reporting. I'm not going to be able to really hone in on what's going on with me internally and give myself the energy and focus and really delve into my internal knowing to be able to give that information to the people who do follow me. And the message that I'm giving right now is for the people who are listening right now. The message that I might give when I have 1 million followers is for whomever needs that message when I have 1 million followers. The message doesn't shift or change. It's just the audience might be smaller now, but that doesn't mean that in the future that audience isn't going to be larger and the people who are in that audience aren't going to need to hear what I have to say. But if I'm thinking about what everyone else is doing, then I don't have the bandwidth or the mind space to hone in on my craft. And the same thing is true of everything else. If you're focusing on what your coworker is doing, you're probably not doing your job to the best of your abilities. Every time you compare, you put information into spaces in your brain that you could be using for productivity and creativity.
We have skeletons in our closet. And these skeletons are things that we're unwilling to share, lies that we have convinced ourselves are the truth. And we go out into the world and we present ourselves in this way, as if those things don't exist. So we might have some things that we've done in our past. We might have some things that are true of us today, and we just hide them in our closets like the skeletons. And that actually is a result of self-righteousness. I don't want people to see me as a flawed individual. So I might share with them pieces of my flaws, but I'm not going to share with them those nitty gritty details, the real skeletons of my closet. So I might share with them the part of this or the version of this that makes me a victim, but I'm not going to share with them the actual thing that is my doing inside of this.
The way that you walk in the world is a reflection of who you are. It could still be a reflection of your conditioning, because if you've been taught that, you're supposed to be of utility to people, then of course you're only going to feel worthy if you're being utilized by other people. But if you go out and do positive things, not for the sake of yourself, but just for the sake of what it means for the other person, if you have conversations that are you trying to benefit the other person and the friend, and they don't see that in you, and their reaction doesn't make you feel like that's what you've done, that has nothing to do with you. What the part of it that you can take ownership over is the intention behind your behaviors and the behavior itself. And so when I started to get real with myself during my healing, I was like, where are the spaces where you're pretending? You can't get yourself back if you don't figure out where it is that you're pretending. And when I started to unearth those things, I realized that the spaces that I was pretending in were the spaces that I no longer wanted to be in, because they were only accepting of me because I was pretending. They were only accepting of me because I had a representative. Once I extracted myself from those spaces and got into the places that I was supposed to be in with the faces that I was supposed to be a part of, the pretending self-defense mechanism just fell away, because I didn't need to be anything other than who I was. And I started to accept that if the people and the places that I was in weren't willing to accept that, the real Carrie, then I didn't belong in them anyway. So in an effort to get back to myself, I said, well, if I'm getting to know me so that I'm no longer foreign to me, so that I can look in the mirror and really see who I am because I know her and I know when she shows up, then I also have to get rid of all the masks that I've been wearing to portray an image of something that I think is going to be more worthy to the places that I'm going into. Joy is a choice, though. So being joyful inside of some of the worst scenarios that we've experienced means that we're stepping outside of our own selves and realizing that God's plan, that his intricately woven together plan, is for the good of all who love him. And I think sometimes we misconstrue that scripture too, because we think that when it says, God is working everything together for the good, we just automatically assume that it means it's going to feel good to us. It's going to be the best plan that we think should happen. And if that doesn't happen, then we wonder if God's really working things together for the good, like the scripture says. But the reality is that our God is much bigger and he has an aerial view.
So instead of trying to change or control the way people act, instead of trying to change or control the way people are, you have to know this is the position they play in my life. Here is the access point that I'm going to give them. And there is going to be no method for me to try to change, shape, or mold them into something different. So if somebody consistently responds in an ugly way to your best efforts, don't try to change what they think about you. Don't try to tell them, but my intention was this, and continue to try to talk your way into good standing with them, because they are keenly and perpetually focused on seeing the bad in you, because that's what they do to themselves. In the initial part of this, we need to determine what are your preferences and what are your tastes anyway, because sometimes we just get that feeling in the pit of our stomach and we don't really know what our tastes or preferences even are. We just know that something doesn't land well with us or doesn't seem right. But your taste will align with your purpose. So what you want and desire will align with what your life's purpose and plan is. And if you go for something that isn't within your realm of desire,
then it's not going to fit into your world when you're pursuing your purpose or your destiny. In fact, it may just be the thing that holds you back from that thing. And I think oftentimes we wait until we get to the decision part, till we get to the, oh, this person can't come with me part, till we get to the, oh, this is my purpose and I don't think this person aligns with it part. But if we sit with ourselves and really resonate with what do we like? What are our preferences? What are our desires? What are our tastes? And really delve into those and let them permeate our being, so that when we walk into the world and we see something that's different from that, we know immediately, right? So if something is really bad, if something is, defeating us in a way that feels like we can't do it anymore, oftentimes the duration of time that we will put up with that thing is far less than something that has these peaks and valleys, because we hold on to the peaks in the state of the valleys and we say, okay, well, I can endure this. It's good enough for me to continue to endure it. What happens in that space is that we never experience what's actually God's best for us, because we're consistently walking in the space that kind of just fits the bill, as opposed to something that we know aligns specifically with who we are. So when we're taking inventory of ourselves and our lives and our past year, we're thinking about what things did we do a whole bunch of that really just had us on the hamster wheel and really just had us spinning our wheels, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and not really receive any results from the end of that. We're looking at what things did we enter into our lives that served us well, and what do we need to focus on to ramp those things up and to continue doing those things for the betterment of ourselves. And we're looking at what might we need to act on. So what are some things that we just kind of left in the muddy waters of our brain and in our spirit and continue to sift through, that we could have just acted on, gotten rid of, done something about, and made our situations better? And so I want to start with a piece of scripture for this one, because I just find this scripture amazing when it comes to taking inventory. Because I think sometimes when we're looking at our lives, we think, I want this thing to change, but do I really want what happens as a result of that change?